Warning. The following podcast features views and opinions that are likely to trigger the extreme fanboys and fangirls who disagree with them. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode, and there have been a lot of new listeners after the last episode, so I just want to say thank you. And if you're jumping on at this point, oh, baby, did you jump on a barn burner? Because this is maybe one of the handful of films that you cannot have an intelligent discussion about in person, certainly online.
No.
But we're going to attempt to have it here today. And joining me, I'm living my Fife life today. Emma Fife in the house.
Hey, what's up? This movie, as you say, you just can't have an intelligent. I brought up to some people in real life that I was going to be covering this on the show with you.
Yeah.
And we had a very intelligent conversation about it in person, but it's like a select, like, small handful of humans with whom you can actually...
It's like an underground resistance.
Yes, exactly, where you can converse intelligibly about this film. And this was... I was talking with somebody that didn't like it, actually full on hated it, but he still was able to be like, here are like some specific reasons for me to pinpoint that didn't work for me as in terms of like character beats and storytelling instead of just being like, this girl's Ghostbusters is bad. Boo.
Yeah, you know what? This movie came around, so it's 2016.
Yes.
And it's Ghostbusters Answer the Call sometimes.
Sure.
You know what's funny is I thought that was the tagline on the poster, and then it started being referred to as that.
Yeah, I guess
I'm just going to call it Ghostbusters.
Technically the title, but yeah,
I'm not
Ghostbusters 2016.
Answer the Call is too hard.
Yeah.
This came out at a very interesting time for our country. I don't really get into politics at all, but I don't think you can talk about this movie without talking about everything that was happening in that summer before election season. It just seemed like everyone was heightened.
They definitely were.
No matter what you thought about politics or about whether the McRib should stay longer than it does, every opinion, every emotion, every feeling in the summer of 2016 was heightened to a degree like I've never seen before, and it kind of hasn't died.
No, I completely agree. That was exactly what I was going to say. Was I feel like even since the 2016 election, those heightened emotions just never went away,
right.
And dear sweet Susan Sarandon with her dumb comments, like it came out the wrong way. And I'm not saying that she didn't say something really stupid. She did.
Right.
But there is an element of like, in a way, it is kind of like rallying the people to like fight back and get invested in politics.
I'm glad you brought up Susan Sarandon. But more importantly, I'm glad you brought up something that probably had good intentions that really took a dark turn, because I feel like that is the theme, the runner of today's episode.
It really is.
Because there's a lot going into this. So let's take a trip down memory lane. Let's figure out a little context how this Ghostbusters film came about.
Yes.
Because for a long time, Ghostbusters 3 was in development hell. And really, when you look back on the history of it, there was a script. There was one that was about, it was called Ghostbusters 3 Hellbent, which would have introduced Ben Stiller as a new Ghostbusters character. And it would kind of be like where they went back to a version of Manhattan, but it was like alternate hell dimension.
I sort of remember reading about that.
But the one, I'm not going to call him a stick in the mud, but the one person that always held it up was Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Bill Murray said, don't like it, not going to happen, I'm not going to do it. And to everyone's credit in that group, they all had veto power, but they were like, you know what, if one of us isn't going to do it, we just shouldn't do it.
Yeah.
So then 2009 rolls around and there's Ghostbusters, the video game. And this thing was such a huge event because all the voice actors were coming back for it. And it made a buttload of money.
It sure did.
It made more money than I thought possible because at the time, Ghostbusters was this thing where I wasn't a huge fan. I'll get that out of the way right now. I'm not a huge fan of Ghostbusters period.
When I was a kid, I was super into Ghostbusters, but I was really into the real Ghostbusters cartoon.
Which they had to call it the real Ghostbusters because there was another cartoon called Ghostbusters that had nothing to do with it.
And again, I have not watched real Ghostbusters in years, but from my recollection, it was great. Like when I was a kid, that was totally my jam. And so I remember I had watched the cartoon a lot. And then I finally actually watched the movies, and I may have seen them out of order in all.
Well, there's only two, so it's not like you can get.
No, I know, two terribly out of order, but it's like I know for a fact that I saw Terminator 2 before I saw The Terminator.
I feel like most of us did.
Yes, but I think with Ghostbusters, I may have seen them out of order because I think it was one of those things where, you know, my parents were watching Ghostbusters 2 on Laserdisc or something, and I just decided to sit down and watch with them.
What a posh life you lived.
I had a very privileged upbringing. But I remember watching that first Ghostbusters movie, and the first time I watched it being very distraught that Slimer was a bad guy.
Oh, yeah.
Because in real Ghostbusters, he's kind of their dumb mascot sidekick.
Bait and switch.
Yes.
It's like, this is the weirdest analogy I'll ever make. It's like if you watched Aladdin the series, before you watched the first Aladdin, you're like, wait a minute, Iago is the bad guy in this?
Yeah.
And there's 3 people right now that are like, I know.
Yes.
So yeah, I watched Ghostbusters for the first time when it came out on DVD for the first time in 2000. So I was probably 13 at the time. Didn't hit at all. I was like, I don't get why people love this. I don't think it's bad. I wasn't into it.
I liked them even though I felt very betrayed by Slimer. I did enjoy the movie as a kid. And some of that was I loved Rick Moranis. I loved Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. I loved Little Shop of Horrors. And also it was the 84 Ghostbusters was scary to me as a kid.
Sure. Yeah.
And I liked being scared.
Yeah. Okay.
So that was why it really resonated with me, I think.
And look, to be fair, it resonated with so many people. I'm the odd man out on this one.
Totally.
It didn't hit for me. I was like, okay, I never saw the second one until years later after that. But so this is all to say when the Ghostbusters video game comes out, it sells millions and millions of dollars worth of copies. I was kind of like, oh, I didn't realize that this was such a thing.
Yeah.
I think Sony was in the same boat. They're like, wait a second. We have just been sitting on this gold mine.
Yep.
We got to do something here. So in March of 2010, a new script came out. Ivan Reitman, they were kind of under pressure to get Reitman out and go a little bit younger. Mm-hmm. This is kind of where that whole thing started. There was another script that came and Murray was like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't like it. So they were like, all right, let's just start over. Mm-hmm. Let's do a whole new script. Let's do a reboot. And Paul Feig has said, he's the director of this movie. Mm-hmm. He was like, you know what? It was kind of nice to be able to not have to try to worry so much about the canon and just kind of start from scratch in a sense. Oh boy, I don't know if they figured at that point. Honestly, here's my opinion.
Yes.
And maybe I'm giving too much credit to the men of the world, but I'm also, I sometimes feel we give the trolls too much credit.
Yes.
I think a lot of the backlash, well, some of it is because it was an all-female cast.
Yes.
I think there's an equal part backlash that they just didn't get the original Ghostbusters, rather like they got a reboot instead of a continuation.
Exactly. And I think, you know, when they were first announcing that this film was happening,
sure,
I was very excited. I'm like, oh, that's great. It's going to be like all, you know, women in these roles, and they're all really funny, talented women. Okay, so far I'm on board. But I even remember for myself as somebody that enjoyed Ghostbusters when they're like, it's like a hard reboot and it's not the same continuity. I was like, oh, but that, and I think that part of it was I went, okay, but also had that feeling of, but the people who are fans of Ghostbusters, like that's going to piss them off. And as you say, it's not that it's all women, it's that it's not like part of the existing Ghostbusters canon.
And I kind of think that's where when you talk about this movie, it immediately starts to break down because a defender or even someone who doesn't really like the movie but just wants to fight, it's immediately like, well, you hate women. It's like, whoa, let's
yeah,
pump
exactly.
the brakes a second.
Totally, exactly. Which again, you're, as you say, like kind of comes back to that like very heightened place everybody was in pre the election in 2016 of like, you know, yeah.
I think that's why this movie's been impossible to talk about, because when that is the first shot that is volleyed at someone that doesn't like this movie.
Yeah.
Where do you go from there?
I know.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's not to say, and again, that's what I'm saying, like, there definitely were people that were like, this is a stunt with all women.
Oh, yes.
But I feel like there was equally, if sometimes not more, people who just were like, be mad at Bill Murray.
Yeah.
If you're going to be mad at anybody.
You're going to be mad at anybody.
Right.
Or like, a lot of the complaints that are completely valid about this film is like the sheer amount of product placement and things like blame the studio for that. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not necessarily the fault of the creative team.
And here's where I circle back to what you were saying about, you know, maybe a misintentioned message that just reaffirms some bad things or some things that aren't true. There's going to be another Ghostbusters 2020. That is coming. It's being directed by the son of Ivan Reitman, Jason Reitman.
Yes.
And he says, we're taking it back for the fans. And with that, I get what he's saying.
Yes,
like, I understand his heart, but it immediately like invalidated, like, you guys didn't want what they gave you before.
100%.
Yeah.
It's interesting because it's different from, yet also a little bit in line with some of the conversation that's going on regarding Star Wars right now in terms of, you know, Rey's parentage. And if, you know, JJ comes back with his film being like, oh, actually, Kylo Ren lied, then like, are we invalidating the stuff that Rian Johnson put in place?
Right.
So again, obviously it's not quite on the same scale because it's not the same continuity. However, there is that same thing of like delegitimizing this film that already has so much like impossible discourse around it.
Yeah. Like it's hard to wade into these waters. And I think the reason why we're starting with the controversy is so that we can actually finally get to talking about this movie because we never did in 2016.
Exactly.
But I do think like part of the conversation has to start with like, if you don't like this movie, I'm not immediately going to point the finger like you're a troll, you hate women, because I don't think that's true.
I completely agree with you on that. Yeah. I don't think that that's true.
Right.
You know, knowing people in real life, one of whom may have just very recently been on this podcast, who hates this movie, but I know that he is a good person who doesn't hate women. His criticisms are very valid, and again, comes from a place of loving Ghostbusters.
Sure.
And it's not even feeling betrayed so much as feeling like, well, I would have liked to see something that was a continuation of the thing that I like.
Right. So if you came here looking for a fight, cool your jets.
Yeah.
Like, I hear you. We're going to get to it. But I happen to love this movie. And I just flat out, I've tried multiple times to watch the first two again. And I'm just like, I can't even get through the first Ghostbusters. It's so boring to me.
That's so interesting.
It's just not interesting to me. And for whatever reason, like this movie, it just tickles my funny bone.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I try not to do comedies on the show because humor is so subjective.
It is very subjective.
The things that make me laugh aren't going to make you laugh. That being said, there are a lot of criticisms that are thrown at this movie that I actually think like I don't agree with that. And one of them is Melissa McCarthy got a lot of criticism. There was general praise for some of the other women, but I think Melissa McCarthy was like, here she goes doing her, you know, one of the trope that I personally hate is funny fat person fall down. And it's just like,
it doesn't strike me. I mean, I guess it happened in this movie, but that didn't really stand
exactly,
out to me.
Right. Well, I think like, you know, certainly the 90s and a lot of 2000s was like, if you were a big person, you're going to be dumb and you're going to fall down a lot. And I do think that a lot of Melissa McCarthy's first roles, she leaned into, okay, I'm a bigger person, so I guess this is who I am. And rewatching this movie, because I was like, did I not notice it? There are a couple scenes but I feel like they play more the slapstick in general than it is a poke at like her size.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Because I mean, you get like multiple scenes of like Kristen Wiig like slipping on slime and falling on her back. And
right.
I didn't feel that Melissa McCarthy's character Abby was particularly targeted.
I don't think so either. So that was like a criticism of this movie. And to be fair, there are things in this movie that I don't think work.
Yeah.
And that wonton joke.
Oh my God.
They tried
I was just talking with somebody about the wonton joke and how it just does not work.
It just won't quit too.
Nope.
I don't know where the runner, someone was like, that's a great bit.
A great bit.
It's just, it's not.
It's not.
But I do appreciate, when she's trying, when Melissa McCarthy's trying out the proton pack thing in the alley, like,
oh yeah, when she's got like the proton glove,
right? And she's got the gun, and it's kind of like a fire hose out of control. Like, I feel like it's one of those things where you see what you want to see, and it's like, sure, you can see shades of the old trope of funny fat fall down, but I see like that would have happened to any character that picked up that gun.
Totally.
The humor comes from the inexperience with the weapon and Kate McKinnon classically underselling what it could actually do.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. Yeah, I mean, that didn't strike me. I think, with Melissa McCarthy, if people, and I don't think this is a criticism of her performance, I think she's quite good. I think that she doesn't have a whole lot of a character arc.
Yeah, I mean, like, most of the character arc is given to Kristen Wiig.
Yes.
But that being said, I do feel like if Kristen Wiig is kind of our protagonist in a sense, I kind of feel like the movie is mostly from her POV.
I think that's fair.
I really like the kind of the journey and the message of this movie where it's kind of like I don't know if it was intentional or if it just is like the magic of sometimes when these movies come out and they just tie in so well. It's like the meta-ness of like, no one wants us to be doing this. No one wants to give us credit. They just want to just push us down and hide us. And we're just not going to do that. Like, I feel like that shines so much brighter in the context of how this movie came out.
Yeah, I think I totally agree with that sentiment. And it's interesting because like rewatching it struck me how very different it is from 1984's Ghostbusters,
right,
and how they just didn't even attempt to do the same thing at all. And for that, I applaud them.
Yeah.
Again, I think that some of the character arcs are a little stale, and I don't necessarily care too much about any of them except Leslie Jones. Something about her just like resonates
because
with me.
she's an everyday person.
Yeah. I think that's what it is she is an everyday person. She's the most grounded character of all of them.
Sure.
Which is interesting considering it's Leslie Jones.
Well, because that's how Leslie Jones is. Like on Twitter, that's how she is all the time anyway.
Yes.
So I just buy it's like, oh, Leslie Jones, just what if she was a Ghostbuster?
Yeah, exactly. That's really what it is. It's literally like she like wandered in and was like, cool, we got a ghost. You need somebody that like has a car,
right?
And can provide all of these things for you. I'm gonna be a Ghostbuster now, like, but I also think that there are things about this movie that really, really work. Like I love the opening scene of this film. Like before any of them are even in it.
Sure.
When we're first introduced to the concept of there being ghosts in Manhattan,
right,
and it's the guy giving the tour of
Gabe
that
from The Office.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Giving that tour of the old like manor. I love that, and all that like. And all just like the shit they call out to also like I can't remember like one of the there were a couple things that he said that were just so funny to me. And that's the thing, is that the moments in this movie that the comedy lands, it just like really, really struck home for me and makes me laugh so hard.
Well, I think you said it best when you said that, they didn't do anything really the same as the first movie. I mean, sure, there are some set pieces that are definitely reminiscent.
Absolutely.
But in terms of the reason why this feels so different, it is because when you look at Bill Murray is the driest, hilarious comedian.
Yes.
And you've got four women who were... It's just a different style of comedy.
Totally different style of
comedy. But
the
dryness, I think, like you said, I'm so sorry, I can't remember the actor's name, but Gabe from The Office.
Yes, Gabe from The Office.
It's just like he's bringing that dry humor again, those like... Wait, that was hilarious.
Yes.
But he delivers it in such a way that I didn't even realize. But I love too, like, that fake out where it's like you think there's a ghost, but then it's like it's just a scam. But then he gets a real ghost. I agree with you too. I love that opening sequence. I think that's the perfect entry into this movie. And then they play the classic Ghostbusters. theme.
Yeah.
How can you complain?
I know.
People hate that Fall Out Boy theme. And I'm like, guys, it's in it for maybe 17 seconds.
Exactly.
And
calm down.
The exact same chord progression.
Yep.
Everybody needs to calm yourself
I'm not
down.
sure if they get to the most controversial lyric in the song, which is "Bustin' makes me feel good." This was a revelation to some people during Halloween Horror Nights because we had a Ghostbusters maze.
Sure.
And so the song was playing over and over and over again. And I had a guest in my group I was taking around one night who was singing the song, and his sister was very distraught that those were the lyrics. She was like, those cannot be the lyrics. And I was like, they sure are. They sure are.
There are a lot of lyrics in innocuous songs. By the way, if you're fascinated by lyrics that shouldn't be in songs that you love, go Google the theme song to Cheers and look up the lyrics because they are, what is that song?
Yep.
So yeah, look, I guess that's my thing. I say this on a lot of things. I'm a person who actually doesn't really shy away from reboots or remakes because my whole philosophy is it doesn't take away the other one that you have.
No.
If you hate this, sure.
Fine.
But people are like, the Fall Out Boy theme. I'm like,
it doesn't make the old theme stop existing.
The other theme is still there, man.
Yeah.
It's even in this one.
Yeah.
Like, relax. It's such a small, teeny.
It's
But I
tiny.
guess I will concede. I don't have the fervor and the love for Ghostbusters. So I just don't. I try to put myself like, if there was a hard rock guitar version of the Star Wars theme that played halfway through the movie, like, would I be really mad? Not really. I don't
think
know.
so.
I don't know.
I wonder about, I think about this a lot too, Billy, because I'm very similar to you in that, except from the point of view of going like, my attitude is I don't want or need remakes of stuff that I like, but I also don't care if it happens. You know what I mean? Because it's very much the same mindset of, well, the thing I love is still there. If they go through with this like Princess Bride remake, which seems to be the only thing the internet ever agreed upon was that they didn't want it. I don't have to watch it. And if I do and I hate it, the movie still exists.
Right. Yeah, your old one. I've said before, it's like, when Tim Burton made his Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, it's not like they recalled every copy of, Gene
Willy
Wilder's.
Wonka, yeah.
Yeah, like it's still there.
Yeah,
You've got a choice. I don't know. I also I don't like when, this has become so much more prevalent, and I truly don't know why now. There's this association of your identity with the things that you like.
You know what it is? I've just had this revelation about myself as I have been listening to multiple cast recordings of the Stephen Sondheim musical Merrily We Roll Along lately.
But as you do.
Yeah, as you do. But it has occurred to me that I think some of the reason why I'm so whatever about reboots and remakes is because, like, when you take a Broadway show or any sort of play, it's done over and over and over again with different casts. Mm-hmm. And I have found a lot of the time with multiple cast recordings of, say, a musical that I like, that there's like somebody I like from the original cast and someone I like from the 2012 revival and someone I like from the, 94 off-Broadway version. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that you get something else out of it every single time.
I think Lin-Manuel Miranda is my least favorite Hamilton.
Wow, controversial.
I just don't like, he's too nasally for me. I don't like it.
The guy I saw at Pantages was unbelievable. So
I went to the same run,
yes.
and it was I was great.
Unbelievable.
And I was so disappointed when I got home and downloaded the soundtrack. He's like, I am not throwing away my shot. I was like, I don't like this.
Miranda actually is in the 2012 cast recording of Merrily We Roll Along. He's
all
Charlie.
connects.
Yep.
But I like to give I think characters like Batman or these big iconic pieces, like if you don't let them evolve, if you don't let people add to the mythos, change some things, that character gets so stale. And maybe the thought was Ghostbusters.
Totally.
Maybe Ghostbusters just wasn't in a place where people thought it was stale yet.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, and again, it's like if you don't allow those characters to change and evolve, then they can get so stale to a point that say you're making a sequel many years down the line, ignoring some other sequels. I am, of course, talking about Terminator.
Oh,
and
yeah.
you have to make a very big decision, which was James Cameron's idea. I don't want to spoil it. That was kind of polarizing to some people.
I know. I didn't even see the movie, and I know what you speak of.
Yes.
Because the 5 people that apparently went and saw this movie were like, I'm done.
Oh,
but
I had not that reaction. I loved Terminator Dark Fate.
I have not seen it. I think I'm burnt out on Terminator, but
Yes,
Terminator's...
that's why no one went to see it.
Yeah.
Because, and this is getting a little off topic, but not entirely.
No, it all connects.
That it all connects. Is that I say this about Terminator. I say this about Transformers. Bumblebee was fantastic.
Right.
Nobody saw it.
Sure.
Because it's a Transformer, and they've seen so many Transformers movies at this point that just get worse and worse and worse. Terminator's in an even worse position than that because it has made multiple sequels that go, well, that other sequel didn't exist.
Right.
Okay, we know you didn't like that one, but now that doesn't exist. Okay, so now ignore both of those and we have a whole new thing. And
Right.
that's the thing. Like, Terminator has reset itself since Judgment Day, since Terminator 2, every single time, basically. And so people are like, how many more times are we going to do this? And then it's going to be bad. And you're going to tell me, well, it doesn't matter. We're going to fix it again.
Which kind of makes me interested about Ghostbusters 2020 because
Yes.
here we are again in a situation where I think had that video game not come out and because it planted the seed in people where it's like, well, it is possible.
Yeah.
These guys are still around.
Yeah.
But bear in mind, by the time that 2016 rolled around, Harold Ramis had passed away.
Yes.
So he was not able to cameo as everyone else did in this movie.
They sure did.
Some of these cameos worked for me.
Yeah.
Some not so much. I loved Ernie Hudson's.
Ernie Hudson's is so good.
He's adorable. I think the best use of it, and probably how most of them should have been, was Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver was perfect.
It was post-credits.
Oh my God, it was so perfect.
Yeah, it
Yes.
was. Bill Murray's was fine. It was actually more involved than seeing as how much he was just like, nope. Then he was a fairly big part of the plot there.
And
yeah.
he had a kind of funny interaction with Chris Hemsworth, who
Yes.
is a gem in this movie.
We're gonna get to Chris Hemsworth, but we have to acknowledge Dan Aykroyd's cameo.
It was weird.
bad.
I have to tell you that even as I was watching it, I'm like, is that Dan Aykroyd? Like, it was
Right.
like literally.
There's the first is like, is it? And then you're like, oh, Dan.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, Dan.
Oh,
Why did you say that?
I know.
Like, it's really painful. I guess the secretary also from the movie.
Yes, Janine.
Also has a cameo.
Yes, she
Again,
does.
I don't even remember very much about the first one or who she is in this one. But
Yes. Yeah,
Oh,
no,
she's
she's
in there.
definitely in it. Why am I literally just watched it and I'm like, where was she in this movie? There's people listening right now that are screaming.
Just screaming?
Or they're just screaming because they're like, why are you talking about this
I
movie?
hate this. She was at the hotel.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, she was like at a desk.
She was a receptionist.
Yeah, she was a receptionist.
So great. Look, some of it, and again, like I'll give you that. But like the cameos is a perfect kind of example of you can't really, to me, you can't make a blanket statement of like, well, the cameos were so bad. It's like a couple of them were dumb.
A couple of them were dumb.
But a couple of them
like,
were really
Sigourney
great.
Weaver was really great.
Yeah,
It was
like-
such a great little reveal at the end.
What a
of
fun
just,
little
yeah,
surprise.
Of just Holtzman being like, oh, this is my mentor, and it's
Right.
Sigourney Weaver.
And as you said, I think he had done some before, but this was the first time that I found out like, oh, Chris Hemsworth is funny.
Hilarious.
Yeah, what?
Hilarious.
Steals this movie.
I completely agree.
and just runs away.
he really does, because he's, you know what it is? It's because he's so sincere.
Yes.
Like, there is not an ounce of irony in this character. Like, he plays everything so straight.
I mean, the Mike hat
Oh
thing,
my God. Can I bring my cat?
covering his eyes.
I'm allergic to cats. I don't have a cat. My cat's my dog.
Michael Hat is your dog. Covering his eyes when something is loud.
Yes.
Metamucil, like the sandwich gag, like everything.
It's so good.
Everything about it was so good, and I could see where he's almost so funny. Well, he's also like not in it a ton. So when he is, like,
Yes,
he hits hard.
he does.
That he does kind of overshadow the women, at least in those scenes.
I agree.
So
yeah.
it's a little tough.
But I think that some of it is that like he just had such great material to work with.
Right.
And he also, and it's like so particular to his style of comedy, because I think that we see a lot of how funny he is in this film transfer over into Thor Ragnarok.
Yes.
Once they were like, oh, you know what? Turns out Chris Hemsworth's funny. Let's like have some fun with that.
Yeah, you have to remember the time at which they shot this. This would have been, he'd just done The Dark World. He had just done Age of Ultron.
I know, it was, they just couldn't figure out what to do with Thor.
He was so tired of being Thor that for them to be like, do you want to just come and like goof off for a month? Like that, like, and you can tell, I was like, oh, he's having fun. I haven't seen that in a little bit.
I think that's part of my, I mean, I am so excited to see Knives Out for a number of reasons, but one of them is to see Chris Evans as not Captain America.
And I will tell you, that is the most alive I have seen Chris Evans in years.
I'm so excited. I'm seeing it next week.
It's so good.
I can't wait.
So good. Everyone pause this podcast when it comes out and go see Knives Out. It's great. Yeah, I think that was a revelation. And for me, I think she had already been around for a little bit, but this was the first time I was like, who's this Kate McKinnon? Because she is great.
She's fabulous in this movie.
To use the Marvel example again, she to me is like, Kate McKinnon to me is the Hulk.
Yes.
Anytime they put her as the lead in a movie, it's a little much for me.
Yep.
But man, when they use her as just like to come in, do your thing, and leave, oh boy,
well,
was she
she's a
good in
little
this.
like, you know, she's in the same sort of boat, I think, as Chris Hemsworth in this movie. Of like, yeah, she's more of a supporting main character,
right? And
that does really play to her strengths. Of like, she just gets to show up. She also is a totally wacky character who's playing it very, very sincere. And it just works.
Yeah, she had like every cast member that she interacts with, she just has like instant chemistry. Mm-hmm. It's like a gift. And again, she might have been on SNL by that point, probably was. I don't remember.
Yeah, she was.
I don't watch SNL that much.
I think the thing too that I really like about Holtzman, her character, is that they, even though she's like a little out there, they treat her like she is very smart and capable.
Yes.
And she's portrayed as being smart and capable, if a little wacky, but there's never like she's a mad scientist. They're like, no, we trust this girl completely. Like, let her make our ghost weapons.
And they never go too far. Like, she's not like eating tuna out of a trash can. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just enough where you're like, I kind of know a couple people. I love him to death, but our old equipment guy at Defy, Joey, he reminded me so much of her because he was my tech genius, but every now and then he would just kind of have that little like,
yes.
I was like, oh, Joey, like, I guess that's why the character is great, is because it's like, I know
that person. Yeah.
Everyone knows a Holtzman.
Everybody does. Yeah.
And I love it when she just gets in the face of those Homeland Security guys. And by the way, I'm so glad somebody found Andy Garcia. I was worried for his safety. I was going to put him on a milk carton.
There he is. There he is.
Okay, after those Oceans movies, I wasn't sure where he went for a little bit.
Yeah.
I don't know if he was like exiled to Redbox like some of the other ones.
Just speaking of the Homeland Security people and like the involvement of the government in this movie, that was something that like I'm undecided about whether or not I like it.
Okay, let's work it out.
The whole like them being like, oh, we're gonna cover up we have to treat you like your wax, even though we know that you guys are like actually saving everybody.
Sure, yeah.
I was like, I didn't know. I think it's because like the whole idea of just dealing publicly with the Ghostbusters and the ghost stuff, like they didn't. It wasn't so much in focus in like the older films.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, I guess that's where...
And again, and like I said, I really applaud that they just were like, we're going to do our own thing.
Right.
Same concept, totally different story beats.
I mean, to me, like, again, as someone who has seen Ghostbusters for sure once all the way through, and at least 2 times... 3/4 of the way through.
Before you got bored and gave up.
Yeah. I think like, this approach is no brainer. Like, we are so used to, kind of the X-Files mentality of like our government always is hiding things from us.
Yes.
It's like, why wouldn't ghosts be any different than aliens?
No, that's fair. No, and that's the thing is I think that like on on like a fundamental intellectual level, I totally understand it. But and again, like I'm undecided. I don't hate it, but I'm not sure I'm fully on board with it.
I think for me, it just like maybe it's a little on the nose, but it's a mainstream comedy. Everything's on the nose, but I love this. This is such like an interesting theme that I feel like not a lot of movies tackle, which is like how many times it's like, you know, Batman saves the day and everyone loves Batman. He's got his own light, but what if like Batman saved the day and we're like, hey, thanks, but no one's ever gonna talk about you. Like, Like I love this idea of like not being recognized for the great thing you do and being forced to swallow it, because again, like I said, very meta. That's kind of what women in these films have been doing for years, you know?
Is downplaying their own being sort of forced to downplay their own contributions in order to continue to play.
Right, exactly. And to be like, you know, the torchbearers of the Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Both in the movie and outside the movie.
Yeah.
Like what a tough spot to be in, you know?
And I mean, it's funny, like I don't hate the, you know, we were talking about the Bill Murray cameo.
Right, yeah.
But there is something a little bit poetic about how it concludes with him basically being like, I don't believe you unless you show me the ghost. And it's like, okay, well, you asked for this.
I mean, to the point where like Jason Reitman is almost Andy Garcia's character.
Yeah.
Of like, thanks for all you contributed. We'll take it from here.
Yes.
You know? And that's why like the meta-ness of this movie, I feel like it ages like even better with like real life context being thrown onto it.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about here's another thing that it didn't not work, but I understand the criticism. Anytime you have an origin story, your villain's gonna suffer just a pinch. There's just not much time. And this guy he was fine. He's just
he was all right.
He's a little lame.
Yeah, he was he was very forgettable to be.
Right.
In a way that like in the 84 Ghostbusters, I think so many people like that image of like Gozer is so like iconic, and it's like, dang, there's like this big bad kind of ghost demon situation happening. And in this it was like, all right, cool. It didn't help in some ways, I think, sort of the case of the movie, but I think there was also a very relevant message in like, so when they find him and he's like in that room and he's using the like he's like trying to affect the ley lines and summon all the ghosts, and he like has this conversation with like, oh well, you must have been afforded all of the luxuries and great things in life that you're due, and Melissa McCarthy's like, no, actually, we kind of get shit on all the time.
Yeah, a lot.
I think that is an interesting and relevant statement about this person who feels like he's entitled to be treated a certain way. And you have this group of women who are like, yeah, we get treated badly too, but we're not psychos who are trying to destroy the city.
Again,
like,
so meta,
like,
and it just becomes more and more relevant as time goes by. But again, like to the point, like just strictly speaking from like a filmmaking perspective or a story perspective, like he's so dispensable.
Yes.
That they dispense him.
They literally do. Yeah.
Halfway through the movie, they're like, you know what? Chris Hemsworth is kind of better. Let's just go with him.
Yeah, exactly. Let's just have him possess Chris Hemsworth, and it'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. I think he was fine for what he was, but you're right. When you think about the iconic images, at least for me, of the 84 Ghostbusters, it's Slimer, and the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man, and I think that when you think about like, well, what's the iconic image from this one? I'm like, there kind of isn't.
There isn't really,
and I think that's a valid criticism of the movie.
And it's also, but there is also the level of, well, I understand why people feel like it needed to have one because of the previous films.
Sure.
However, like not every single movie has like a single shot that you're like, that's it. And that's the thing I remember. Like there's plenty of like, especially in comedy, kind of like just full of sort of quiet, funny moments.
There are, I do think, I mean, to counter that, which is weird because I'm the one that loves this movie and now I'm countering.
And I'm kind of like, I don't hate this movie, but I don't love it. I'm like, oh, it was fine.
To counter, I do think like I consistently laugh during this movie.
Yes.
Like any comedy. There's going to be a bucket full of jokes that are swing and a miss for me. But if someone was like, what's the standout scene from this movie? I don't know if I can, like, off the top of my head be like, oh, well, the sequence obviously where...
I don't think I can either. Right. I'm more likely to be like, oh, that one scene with Chris Hemsworth on the phone where he just picks up and hangs up because he wants nothing to do with that.
Holding up the 2 pictures of the saxophone.
Oh, my God. Which one makes me look more like a doctor?
Listening to saxophone or playing? Both with his shirt off. But yeah, like I do think, like, even though I don't remember a ton about the movie, I still know enough to.
Yeah, you can see that image.
You remember the refrigerator or them on the top of the building, and the Marshmallow Man. Yeah. Like, there are iconic moments. This one, I definitely think they're like, every sequence is entertaining to me while I'm watching it. But the minute I'm away from it, I'm like, I'm
gonna circle it back to Halloween Horror Nights.
Let's do it again.
Our maze was based on, I work at Universal, by the way, if people don't know, was based on 84 Ghostbusters. Okay. And going into it, I know exactly what's going to be in this maze. And every scene I thought was going to be in there was in there. Slimer eating the food off of the, like, concierge cart, the woman in the library. Florida had... the rooftop with Gozer. Gozer was in our maze, but it wasn't as cool as the Florida one. And then, like, them fighting the Stay Puft Marshmallow. Like, there's so many moments in that movie that just are, like, very, like, clear pictures in people's brains. And if I were to go, what's a maze of this gonna be? I'm like, Chris Hemsworth on the phone.
Yeah, exactly. And that's fair. And that's not to say that I don't like the third act, because I do. I got a lot of, like, Tim Burton Batman vibes from, like, the balloons and the parades. I was like, this is neat. It all looks good. Yeah. The effects, I think, are
good in this
great
movie. Yeah. Really good.
For what it's worth, like, as cool as you can make a Haunted Mansion ghost look.
Totally.
Yeah. But I do think that's a valid criticism, is that this movie doesn't have that one set piece that grabs you, but it's consistent to me. And I feel like consistency, I guess, is better than, like, a movie where I'm just waiting for, like, that iconic
big moments.
part.
Yeah.
And that's just me.
Yeah.
Obviously, that's just me.
Totally.
Everyone freaking loves the Ghostbusters. Good God almighty.
It's interesting because my roommate really loves this movie. But she really loves all Ghostbusters. She's just like, I don't think they can make a Ghostbusters I don't like. But she also said that she feels like her interest in Ghostbusters was bolstered by this film. Like, this made her want to go back and revisit the first movie and the second movie.
Right.
Because, like me, she used to watch Real Ghostbusters as a kid. And in Real Ghostbusters, Janine, their receptionist, gets to be a Ghostbuster eventually.
Why wouldn't you at that point?
Yeah. And I mean, they sort of echo that with when Chris Hemsworth shows up and he's in the coveralls and he's like, we're a team, we're all doing this together. And they're like, Kevin, you gotta come inside. But yeah, like it's and so for her, she said, watching it, I'm now watching a movie where it's like women get to do everything instead of being the receptionist and being, the woman that's having ghost problems that needs help.
Right.
And I appreciate that this movie wasn't about, like, a manzole in distress, if you will.
Sure, yeah.
Not to say that Dana's entirely a damsel in distress, but, like, there's elements of it for sure.
Of course. I mean, that was just, like, what we did for a long time.
100%.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that, there is a level of, I look at this movie and go, yeah, as an adult, I'm like, this is fun. I don't love it, but this is fun. I like it. I find it very watchable. If I had seen this movie when I was the age I was when I saw the first Ghostbusters movie, I would have been so into this. I would have been having my mom make me a Ghostbusters coverall and figure out how to make a proton pack. And, like, I would have been all in on Ghostbusters instead of just being obsessed with Slimer, which is what I was as a child.
Wasn't there a drink too?
Ecto Cooler.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's so funny. Like, I know all the tangential things of Ghostbusters, but the actual movie,
Yeah.
So this is interesting. When the trailer was released on YouTube, it very quickly found itself in the top 10 most disliked videos on
Wow.
YouTube. The ratio was, get this, 280,000 likes to over 1 million dislikes.
Oh my God.
Overwhelming. So I guess my question to you is, did this movie ever have a chance? Ever?
I don't think so. Like, again, it's just people. It was the time period in which it came out, and it was the 1-2 punch of we're going to make this thing. And again, you and I are both talked a lot on this podcast already about how if somebody tells me they don't like this movie, I don't automatically assume that they're a misogynist.
Sure.
In fact, my inclination is that they probably have a very valid criticism of it because there's a lot in this movie to criticize.
Right.
But yeah, I think that it was the 1-2 punch of we're making a thing with all women. And so you do have a certain percentage of people that go, it's pandering. It's what do they call us? SJW propaganda.
I'm a soy boy.
I literally had to Google what SJW was.
I had to Google I still don't really know what a soy
really
boy
know
is.
What a soy boy is either.
I drink soy milk every now and then because I can't handle real milk.
You're like, I can't have the lactose. So
I guess I am a soy boy. My doctor recommended, okay?
and the people, and I think there were then a certain percentage of people that then a larger percentage of people, quite honestly, that were alienated by the fact that it simply wasn't a continuation of the thing that they liked. I think that had they come into this with like, okay, it's a new generation of Ghostbusters, you would have seen a lot more people enjoying this movie.
You know what's crazy about this too? This movie, with critics,
I know,
has a 74% Rotten Tomatoes score.
Yeah.
But what's even more interesting to me is that when the cinema score, which is where they grab people after the movie, it's a B+. People that went and saw were like,
I know,
pretty good.
Yeah.
Which is exactly how
That's how I feel.
I'm maybe a hair above pretty good to like, really cool.
Yeah.
But I don't think that this movie is worth the disdain, nor would I die on the hill for this movie.
No, same.
It's not worth any major emotions.
It's not.
That's the crazy part about all of this.
It's just like a decent comedy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Like, when I say I prefer this Ghostbusters over the other one, that's not to say like, and my room is plastered with Ghostbusters 2016
No, you're just
toys
like,
and
I'm not
posters.
that
I'm like,
into Ghostbusters.
But this one I was like, yeah, if I'm gonna watch a Ghostbusters,
Right.
I prefer to put on this one.
Sure.
That's all it boils
I mean,
down
I
to.
was curious. I was looking today, and obviously, you know, the first, the 84 Ghostbusters has the highest critical score.
Sure.
This has a higher critical score than Ghostbusters 2.
Which I don't even think I've seen two, to be honest with you. I think I started it. I was like, nah, I don't like
silly.
this.
And that's the thing, is that I think that because that first one is held in such high acclaim, because it was, no one had done anything like that before.
Right,
it was such a fun original idea. It was a really good horror comedy. That to me is certainly the scariest of any of the Ghostbusters films that have come out. And again, like, I saw it as a kid when a lot of the imagery was very
intense.
I felt very in suspense watching that movie. And I felt some suspense watching Ghostbusters 2 also because it involves a baby. And I just have anxiety about children getting kidnapped. It's just pretty
Very odd
normal.
because you don't have a
I don't
child?
have any children. No.
I mean, I would not recommend Mel Gibson's Ransom
Yeah.
for multiple
Right,
reasons,
I know,
but
I
one of
know.
them being
Yes.
that movie. I was like, I saw that movie, by the way, when I was like 9, and I was like, losing a child is the most terrifying thing.
Yes.
My mom was like, who are you? You are 9. Like, go play outside.
I know. I get the child anxiety from my mom. She passed it on to me because, like, when we would be like in the mall or something when I was a kid, which is so funny because, like, by the time I was like 10, my mom would be like, sure, you just go to whatever stores you want and meet us at the carousel at 2 o'clock. Like, but when she would see like little kids perceptibly without a parent, like, she would literally like stalk them until a parent appeared.
And was probably like, leave my child alone.
I know, right? She was really good at like hanging back far enough. But I have a talent for I have found 3 or 4 lost children, I think, in my career at Universal Studios.
I mean,
so.
you're doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, exactly.
To be clear, because I'm sure someone is going to listen to half this episode and then turn it off. Ghostbusters 84 is not a bad movie.
Yeah.
Ghostbusters 84, not a bad movie. No, it's not a bad movie.
No, it's a great
Ghostbusters
movie.
84. I'm just not interested.
You're not
That's
personally
the
invested
difference.
in it.
Yes,
Yeah.
that is the difference.
I think that's kind of the thing, and that is a big larger narrative that's going on in terms of film and television, just fictional discourse and criticism in general.
Sure.
Is that there are so many people, like, there's somewhere along the line we like gave up on people liking different things.
Yeah.
And if like not everybody likes a thing, then there's some if somebody like doesn't like a thing that you like, they're somehow threatening. And I just don't understand that.
This whole, at least at the time of recording this whole Martin Scorsese Marvel thing.
It's so silly.
It's insane. It used to be like, man, we are not a punk rock generation coming up, because it used to be like, I don't want my parents to like what I like.
Exactly.
You know, then it's like dumb, you know?
I know.
But for some reason, you know, the reason why, like, yes, we've talked about the movie, but the reason why there's so much conversation around this movie is because I feel like this movie, to me, was really the start of like these wars.
Yeah.
For me, it started with Ghostbusters, and then it moved on to like Justice League, and then it really hit hard with Last Jedi, to the point where like, we are still talking about Last Jedi, and there's another one coming,
about to come out,
and we're still talking about the last one.
Know.
But for whatever reason, and we've talked about some of the reasons, but I do feel like Ghostbusters 2016 was just the line in the sand where there were people who were we're not going to take it
Yup.
Which is so strange. It's like, this movie is not worth launching 1,000 ships for, you know?
It's not. And I mean that, and it's something that I know I have talked about even on SJU before, this whole idea of like, there's no room in a previous, like, even maybe, okay, I was like 4 years ago. I was like, it was about 4 years ago that this movie came out. Now, practically. Okay, let's say 10 years ago.
Okay.
Had this movie come out in, let's say, like 2005 to 2008, it would have been like, okay, cool. That was like a fine comedy. I feel like it would not have had this level of, as you say, like divisiveness and just like drawing that line in the sand and going, nope.
I honestly don't think it would have been a hit either way.
No, I don't think it would have been
I
either.
actually don't think it would have been a hit. I don't think anyone would have talked about it. I think it would have just come and gone.
100%. I completely agree. You would have seen it on TV, on TBS, on a Sunday afternoon. You'd just be like sitting around doing nothing.
This would be like Blues Brothers 2000.
Yes,
where
exactly.
You're just like, okay, that's a thing, you know?
Yes. And you'd watch it and you'd go, cool, that was all right.
Yeah. But yeah, the way it came out, the way it still is just like, to my knowledge, and I this is full disclosure, the one part of Screen Junkies that I actually don't really put my hand in at all is Honest Trailers. But to my knowledge, I think this was the only Honest Trailer where they like disabled the comments day one.
Yeah.
They're like not even going to go down this road. Like, that is insanity to me. It is so crazy. I do think though, like, yeah, had this movie come out in 2005, the promise of maybe they'll all get back together wouldn't have been delivered in that video game. I think Ghostbusters is one of those things too, where I guess I just didn't realize it. There's just, in my opinion, no way to win. Like, taking on another even 2020, I'm kind of skeptical about. I just don't know if people are going to buy it.
Yeah.
I mean, I it could be kind of like Terminator Dark Fate or one of these Terminators where it's like, it's not so much that people are up in arms, because everyone likes Paul Rudd and the cast. They're like, yeah, sure, fine. But it may just come and it's no one
goes
cares
to see
anymore.
it.
Yeah.
I think about that too, because I mean, that's totally what happened with Terminator Dark Fate. And it's unfortunate because it's actually a very good movie. Like, even I know there are people that are mad about the thing that happens in the beginning,
sure,
but like, get over that and pay attention to the story.
There's so many other timelines if you don't like this one.
Exactly. Because it's important to the story,
sure,
and it ends up paying off in a really good way. And I felt a really good way. So I'm like, you know, and again, but it is unfortunate because we've been promised so many times, like, it's going to be better this time.
Right.
And now it really was better this time, but nobody cares anymore.
It's possible. I guess we'll see when this comes out next year. I do wonder if maybe time will be a little bit kinder to this movie.
Yeah.
If once, you know, we've moved on from a lot of things, if we ever calm down a little bit, which is, it's not going to be anytime soon.
No.
But I do wonder, I still think kind of the pipe dream that you said, like, there will be a day where this pops on TBS and someone who just was like, all right, fine. Like, and they'll be like, hey, you know what? That's not bad.
Yeah,
you know,
I think
that future could possibly still be in the cards for this. It does really, truly bum me out that I'm just not going to get to continue this version of Ghostbusters. I'm bummed. And I totally understand, like, you know, Leslie Jones was very upset when they announced 2020. Like, wow, thanks for not only dragging us under the bus, for calling me horrible names.
Yes.
And now everything we did just was for nothing. I don't think it was, but I totally understand.
I 100% understand what she's coming from, and she's fully entitled to voice that opinion.
Yes.
Because I think for me, I feel a little bit with the Ghostbusters 2020 thing that, like, it's been handled badly in the way that it has treated this film. And that's really not cool to all the people that made this. It's
also, like, again, and this is why I say Ghostbusters is almost in like a no-win situation, because it's like, I do think that there have been comments where I don't think Jason Reitman meant, like, even Paul Feig has been like one of the biggest supporters of my movie was Jason. Like, there's just no way to, like, move forward without giving the small troll section that validation of, like,
and that's what it is. And as you say, it's the small troll section. It is a vocal minority in an echo chamber who amplify their own voices. And then because all they hear are their own voices all around them, because again, they're in a tiny echo chamber,
right?
They think everybody feels the way that they do.
Yes.
And that's just not true.
It's not. But I'm also glad that we can come to the consensus that it's also not true. The other echo chamber where it's like, well, if you hate this, you hate women.
Correct.
Because that's not true either.
That's super not true.
The moral of the story, kids, is there's levels of gray in everything.
Yes. Yep.
You can dislike this movie. It's a comedy. Like, I think what makes comedy so great is that different comedies speak to different sensibilities and different senses of humor.
100%. I love Jim Carrey as an actor. I think he's a wonderfully talented dramatic actor. I think he is a very talented comedian whose comedy I don't like.
That physical comedy is just not for you. Yeah. Big physical comedy, not for you. I really enjoy most of Judd Apatow's movies, and those are just like all improv. There's not a lot of craft to them.
No.
But I like the style.
It resonates with you. Yeah.
They could be shorter.
Yeah.
But yeah, comedy is very subjective. Again, that's why we don't do them a lot. But I wanted to do this episode because I do think if you are out there and you are listening, and this is a movie that you really like, you're not alone. There are other people that really like this. I really like this. Yeah. But more importantly, if you are someone that dislikes this movie and you do decide to have those conversations, all I would ask is just back it up.
Yeah.
It was dumb. Why was it dumb? Yeah, that's all. And that's not even just this movie. That's in general.
Yes.
I want to talk to people who don't have the same opinion as me, but I don't want to just hear you say it's dumb, it's bad, it's lazy.
Yes.
It's like, tell me what scenes you didn't like. Tell me why a character didn't resonate. Let's talk.
Yeah, not everybody has to be on the same page about everything.
Sure, that would be really boring.
It would be really boring.
Please leave Martin Scorsese alone.
I know, if we all liked the same stuff. Also, why do you care if Martin Scorsese likes the MCU films? It really doesn't. It's not affecting your life.
The worst was when they're just like, he's made like one good movie. It's like, oh boy.
Okay, guys,
here we
listen.
go. Look, Emma and I, we are just two people.
Yeah.
We can't fight every war.
We can't fight everybody.
But I do know that you guys, our audience that are listening, you guys are great. I love you guys because you listen to this whole thing and you are very reasonable people. And Emma, you're a very reasonable person.
Yes, it turns out I am. You're so welcome. You are so welcome.
This was a fun episode. Thank you guys so much. If you could do me a massive, massive favor and just pause this real quick. Go to iTunes, rate, review, subscribe, all the fun stuff. Because when you rate and review and you're like, hey, this isn't that bad. And then when you type in Billy Business, the first podcast that comes up is not a real estate podcast. It'll be my podcast. And I'm so close.
You're competing with a real estate podcast?
I'm so close to knocking that other guy out.
That's amazing.
So close. Join me next week. This is an interesting one. I'm very interested to talk about this one. I'm talking with your friend and mine, Cameron Rice, is coming over. We are talking another person that's been in the news lately. We were talking Francis Ford Coppola's Godfather Part 3 next week. That is the one that most people say shouldn't exist, and I say bollocks, sir. I think it is a great ending to that trilogy. Thank you guys so much, and I will see you guys next week.